The early autumn breeze of California drifts gently past the floor-to-ceiling windows of a suburban single-family villa, carrying the fresh scent of trimmed grass into the brightly lit living room. Outside, the night is quiet and the courtyard neat and elegant. Inside, warm lamplight bathes every corner, painting a picture of a prosperous middle-class family. To outsiders, the Carters are a harmonious, enviable household with well-behaved children and a stable, affluent life. Yet only I know the truth beneath this glossy facade, a quiet, cold grievance I have borne alone for 22 years. The world sees a perfect, happy family. I see endless favoritism, silent sacrifices, and an emptiness in my heart that no amount of devotion can ever fill. My name is Evelyn Carter, 22 years old, the eldest daughter of the family. For as long as I can remember, every ounce of tenderness, tolerance, preference, and privilege in this house has never belonged to me. Instead, all compromise, dedication, forbearance, and self-sacrifice have always been forced upon me without reason. My younger sister Chloe is 5 years my junior. She is my parents' precious darling, the absolute center of the family, around whom everyone revolves. I, on the other hand, have long been treated as little more than a free housemaid, a disposable stepping stone, a tool meant only to brighten her life and complement her perfect image. This unspoken rule of unfair preference has governed my life for 22 years, etched deep into my bones, woven into every ordinary day, impossible to escape. In my childhood, new clothes, shoes, and exquisite toys always went to Chloe first. I grew up wearing hand-me-downs from relatives, outdated, ill-fitting, yet no one ever bothered to ask if they suited me. Tasty snacks, delicate desserts, and fresh fruits always piled up on Chloe's desk, while I was left with nothing but scraps. The moment I showed even the slightest longing, my parents would shut me down coldly. "You're the older sister. Be sensible and yield to your sister." Our pocket money differed drastically too. Chloe spent freely, indulging every whim without restraint, while I saved pennies for months, only to see my frugal efforts amount to less than a single casual purchase of hers. My thrift was never praised. It was simply taken for granted. As we entered school, this unfair favoritism grew even more blatant and unscrupulous. Whenever Chloe was lazy and refused to finish her homework, I would stay up late to complete it for her. Impulsive and spoiled, she constantly quarreled with classmates, damaged others' belongings, and stirred up trouble, and every time, I was the one forced to apologize humbly, pay for the losses, and clean up her messes. Even when we were both at fault, I was always the one scolded and punished. My parents unconditionally sided with my younger sister, blaming all mistakes on my lack of tolerance. 2 sentences ran through my entire youth, becoming my parents' go-to moral coercion and the heaviest shackle on my heart. "Evelyn, be sensible as an elder sister, and Chloe is still young. Don't haggle with her." I did try to argue, to summon the courage to speak out my grievances. Yet every sincere confession never brought fairness, only intensified blame, isolation, and cold violence. I was accused of being narrow-minded, petty, and unreasonable, of envying my own sister and ruining family harmony, burdened with every negative label my parents could pin on me. Disappointment after disappointment, coldness after coldness, taught me to stay silent, to endure quietly, and to stop craving warmth and favor from my parents. If family love is unreliable, if my birth family only brings me oppression and hurt, then I will rely on myself to build my own confidence and future. I have been gifted from an early age, especially passionate about biology and medicine, with a keen sensitivity and extraordinary comprehension of human physiology and pathology. Throughout high school, my grades consistently ranked top of the grade. I was viewed by all my teachers as the most promising student capable of getting into top-tier universities and breaking free from class constraints, the only hope for this ordinary middle-class family to move upward. Chloe, in contrast, was spoiled rotten from childhood. She hated studying, indulged in vanity and impulsive pleasures, and spent all her time on parties, fashion, and socializing. Never focused on her studies, her grades lingered at the bottom of the grade. With no plans for her future, she basked in my parents' extreme favoritism and unscrupulously consumed my efforts and the family's resources. To escape this cold, biased family once and for all, to take control of my own destiny, I embarked on an almost obsessive journey of relentless study. While my peers played and chatted after class, I drilled and reviewed textbooks alone. While others spent weekends shopping and partying, I buried myself in the library, delving into professional books. While others stayed up late binge-watching shows to relax, I sorted medical notes and polished university application essays deep into the night. For 4 full years of college, I never allowed myself a moment of indulgence or reckless spending. My life consisted solely of studying, improving, and accumulating knowledge, steadily advancing toward my goal of a top medical school without a single moment of slack. I knew better than anyone that a spot in a prestigious medical school was my only way out, my sole chance to break free from my family's exploitation, cast off the chains of fate, and reinvent my life. Once admitted, I would gain complete independence, no longer forced to compromise, sacrifice, or subordinate myself to others, and finally live for myself. I prepared for this ultimate interview at Stanford School of Medicine for 8 long years. From setting my heart on medicine in high school, to deepening my professional knowledge in college, accumulating clinical experience, and refining my academic resume, I poured all my time, energy, and efforts into this crucial opportunity, pinning all my hopes on it. My only formal suit was bought with money I saved through part-time jobs and extreme frugality over 6 months. It was a tailored navy blue blazer and trousers, crisp, neat, and high quality, the most expensive, decent piece of clothing I owned, and the only one worthy of my interview at the world's top medical school. I cherished the suit more than anything. I folded it carefully, hung it deep in my closet with a dust cover, and guarded it carefully against even the slightest dust or crease. To others, it was just ordinary formal wear. To me, it was a testament to 8 years of hard work, the foundation of all my efforts, the key to a brand new future, and my only hope and despair. The next day would bring the final round of admissions interviews at Stanford School of Medicine. As the #1 medical school in the United States, it boasted an extremely low acceptance rate. Countless talented, high-achieving students fought fiercely for a single interview spot. Yet through my solid academic performance, rich practical experience, and extreme self-discipline, I had earned this rare final round qualification. If I performed steadily, I would be halfway into the world's top medical institution, ready to leave my gloomy past behind. That night, I took out my treasured suit, ironed it meticulously, matched it with a crisp white shirt and black leather shoes, and hung it neatly on my bedroom hanger. Warm lamplight fell on the smooth fabric, glowing soft and clean. For the first time in years, my taut nerves relaxed, filled with eager anticipation for the future. I adjusted my collar and posture repeatedly in the mirror, practicing my interview responses silently, imagining myself walking into the interview room calmly, answering every question steadily, and finally securing my admission. At that moment, my longing for a new life was vivid and passionate. I firmly believed that 8 years of perseverance and hard work would finally be fully rewarded. This interview was never merely an admission assessment. It was the redemption for my 22 years of endurance, and my strongest weapon against injustice and fate. Yet I never imagined that the hope I had guarded with all my strength, the future I cherished above all else, would be cruelly shattered and destroyed by my own sister on the eve of my life-changing interview. It was 11 o'clock at night. The entire villa had fallen into complete silence. My parents had long retired to their rooms and fallen asleep, with only a faint nightlight glowing in the living room, casting a cold, dim glow across the space. I had finished washing up, ready to rest and conserve my energy for the crucial final interview the next day. As I turned around, I caught sight of Chloe lingering furtively at my bedroom door. She stood in the dim shadow without turning on any light, her gaze dark and obsessive, fixed rigidly on the brand-new suit hanging on my wardrobe. Her eyes brimmed with undisguised jealousy and malice. My heart sank abruptly, and a strong sense of unease washed over me. I knew Chloe's nature all too well. Spoiled, selfish, and narrow-minded, she could never bear to see anyone else do well, especially not me thriving and stepping into a bright future. Ever since we were little, whenever I achieved even the smallest success or possessed something precious, she would scheme to ruin it, determined to leave me with nothing. "Chloe, what are you doing here? Go back to bed right now." I spoke up, my tone laced with obvious vigilance and caution. She shrugged, putting on a casual, indifferent air, yet a sinister, Mocking smile tugged at her lips. Nothing. Just came to check on your precious suit. You're going to interview at a top school tomorrow and act like a big shot, aren't you? No wonder you treasure it so much. Scared anyone will mess it up. Don't touch my things. Get out at once. I hurried forward, intending to close the door, my unease growing stronger by the second. But Chloe instantly pressed her palm against the doorframe, pushed me aside roughly, and sauntered straight into my bedroom. Her eyes remained glued to the suit, filled with resentment and jealousy. It's just a medical school interview. Why make such a big fuss? Evelyn, do you think you're about to soar high and outshine me? Have you long been dying to escape this family and stop accommodating me? I sighed deeply, overwhelmed with helplessness. I had never deliberately flaunted my efforts, never deliberately undermined her pride, and never looked down on her mediocrity. Yet in her eyes, every bit of my progress, hard work, and achievement was a provocation she could not tolerate. This interview means everything to me. I've prepared for 8 whole years. Stop messing around and leave. I suppressed my irritation and tried to reason with her patiently. No way! Chloe let out an arrogant, cold snort, stepping closer to brush her fingers over the suit fabric, her gaze growing increasingly obsessive. Why do you get to interview at a top medical school? Why do you still end up better than me even when Mom and Dad favor me? I won't let you improve. I won't let you leave this family. Her vicious intentions were blatant and unhidden. She wanted me to stay trapped in this family forever, forever yielding to her, waiting on her, and being overshadowed by her, forever serving as her stepping stone, never allowed to break free and chase a better life. This is my life. I'm working for my own future, and it has nothing to do with you. I reached out to pull her away, trying to stop her nonsense. My touch enraged her instantly. Chloe roughly shook my hand off, her eyes flashing with vicious rage. Like a spoiled child whose treasure had been stolen, she shouted hysterically, "Nothing to do with me? If you get into medical school and succeed, Mom and Dad won't love me the most anymore. Everyone's attention will be on you. I won't let you go. Never." The second the words left her mouth, she spun around and rushed into the bathroom. In the next moment, she stormed back out, holding a full bottle of bleach. The pungent, choking chemical scent flooded the bedroom in an instant, carrying a destructive aura that turned my blood ice cold. My pupils constricted sharply, my heart plummeting in my chest. I instinctively lunged forward to stop her. "Chloe, put that down. Do you have any idea what you're doing?" Never in my 22 years of life had I felt such overwhelming panic and despair. This was never just a piece of clothing. It carried 8 years of my relentless study, countless days of endurance and suffering, and all my hope and confidence. It was my only ladder to a new life. But Chloe was completely blinded by jealousy, without a single trace of hesitation or mercy. A twisted, vengeful smile spread across her face, growing wider at the sight of my panic. She twisted open the bottle and poured the icy bleach all over my brand-new, neat navy blue suit without hesitation. The transparent liquid spread wildly, soaking the crisp fabric. The deep, elegant navy hue faded and mottled before my eyes, ugly pale white patches spreading rapidly across the entire suit. The once smooth fabric stiffened and wrinkled from the chemical corrosion, the sharp stench clinging stubbornly to every thread. "No!" I cried out in agony, throwing myself forward in a desperate attempt to save my only hope. But it was already too late. In just a few seconds, the suit I had cherished and guarded carefully for half a year was completely ruined. Covered in jagged, uneven white stains, it looked tattered and hideous, stripped of all decency. 8 years of anticipation shattered in an instant. All my hard work was nearly wasted. For tomorrow's interview at the prestigious top university, I no longer had a single decent formal outfit to wear. My whole body trembled violently, my hands and feet turning icy cold. A heavy weight crushed my chest, leaving me gasping for breath, as endless despair swallowed me whole. In contrast, Chloe held a half-empty bleach bottle in her hand, no guilt or remorse on her face, only triumphant ease and blatant provocation. "There. Now you can't go to your fancy interview looking glamorous. Evelyn, stop trying to outshine me. I'm supposed to be the best in this family, and you're always meant to yield to me." My voice trembled with disbelief. "You knew exactly how important this interview is to me. You knew I saved up for months to buy this suit. You did this on purpose. You wanted to ruin my future. So what if I did? Chloe tilted her head and laughed arrogantly, utterly unrepentant. You only ever study and act so perfect, making me look worthless. I hate seeing you like this. I'm going to destroy everything you have. Her malice was unrestrained and bottomless. Growing up, she never faced consequences for her mistakes. Her willfulness always tolerated, her misdeeds always covered for. Spoiled rotten by my parents, she had grown selfish and resentful of others' success, and scrupulously trampling my efforts and destroying my hopes. Years of suppressed grievance, resentment, and despair erupted all at once. Overwhelmed with emotion, I raised my voice and argued with her fiercely. The loud quarrel finally woke my sleeping parents. Rapid footsteps approached from outside. My parents pushed open the door, their faces twisted with irritation and annoyance at being woken up, not a shred of concern in their eyes. What's all the noise in the middle of the night? Can't you behave? You're always throwing pointless tantrums. My mother frowned and snapped at me sharply, her tone cold and harsh. My father followed closely behind, his face dark and frigid. His stern eyes locked straight on me, treating me as the sole troublemaker. The moment Chloe saw them, she completely changed her demeanor. Dropping all her arrogance, she hung her head, her eyes turning red, pretending to be wronged and timid. She slipped quietly behind my mother and began to sob softly, her flawless acting sending a chilling cold through my heart. What's wrong? Who upset my baby? My mother's heart softened instantly. She pulled Chloe into her arms protectively, her eyes blazing with anger as she glared at me. Evelyn, did you bully your sister again? Are you throwing another fit? Can you not be more sensible? I pointed at the mottled, completely ruined suit hanging on the rack, my throat tight and aching with suppressed sobs. Mom, look! She deliberately ruined my interview suit with bleach. Tomorrow is Stanford Medical School's final interview, and this was my only formal outfit. She intentionally sabotaged my chance. I had thought such obvious, undeniable harm would finally earn me justice. I had hoped, just once, my parents would see the truth and stand up for me. But I was far too naive. 22 years of favoritism had long taken root in their hearts. They never judged by right or wrong, only by closeness. My mother glanced casually at the damaged suit, no trace of heartache or guilt in her eyes, only endless indifference and impatience. She continued to comfort the feigning Chloe while reprimanding me coldly. It's just a piece of clothing. Is it worth waking the whole family up in the middle of the night? You're being overly dramatic and petty. I froze completely, my eyes instantly watering in disbelief. Just a piece of clothing? This is my only interview suit. I've prepared for 8 years for this interview, and it could all be ruined because of this. This is my future. If it's ruined, so be it. It's no big deal. My father's voice was cold and ruthless, devoid of any warmth. There will be other chances. Your sister is young and doesn't know any better. Can't you, as the elder sister, yield to her? Why must you fixate on such trivial things? How narrow-minded can you be? Trivial! My chest heaved violently, and hot tears finally spilled down my cheeks. She deliberately destroyed my future, and you call it trivial? Why must I spend my whole life yielding and sacrificing? Why do I have to pay for her mistakes? Because you're the elder sister. My mother raised her voice sharply, her tone domineering and forceful. Have you forgotten everything we've taught you? Elder sisters are born to tolerate and yield to their younger siblings. Chloe was just being naughty and careless. You insist on making a huge fuss and disrupting the whole family. You've grown so selfish and unreasonable. She did it on purpose. She knew perfectly well how important this interview is to me. She's just jealous and doesn't want me to succeed. I tried my hardest to defend myself, to expose their hypocrisy. Enough! Be quiet! My father cut me off sharply, his eyes full of condemnation and disgust. Stop distorting the truth and throwing unreasonable fits. Your sister is kind and innocent. She would never deliberately hurt you. You're just too harsh and unyielding. It's only a suit. We can simply buy a new one. It's extremely disappointing that you refuse to let this go. Buy a new one? How casually they said it. They would never know I had earned this suit through 6 months of early mornings and late nights, of extreme frugality, and giving up all entertainment. They would never know how many all-nighters I had pulled, how much pressure I had endured, and how many grievances I had swallowed for this interview. They were blind to all my efforts and despair, seeing only Chloe's fake tears. Hidden behind my mother's back, Chloe caught their unconditionally biased words and curled her lips into a proud, defiant smile. She was utterly certain that no matter what mistakes she made or how much she hurt me, my parents would always spoil and protect her, forcing me to bow down and endure everything alone. "Apologize to your sister at once," my father ordered in a low, unquestionable tone, brimming with oppressive authority. My body went rigid, cold blood spreading through every inch of my limbs. The last glimmer of hope in my heart died completely. "I've done nothing wrong. I will never apologize. She's the one at fault, not me." "You refuse to apologize?" My mother's face turned completely cold and stern. "Then you endure it. This ends tonight. No more fussing. Go to your interview tomorrow if you can, or skip it if you can't. Don't let your petty trouble upset my daughter." Upset her? I stared blankly at my parents, who twisted right and wrong, and at my sister, who committed evil deeds yet was doted on. All the expectations, grievances, and resentment I had accumulated over 22 years crumbled and faded into nothingness. I was sensible, enduring, outstanding, and devoted, yet all I received was endless exploitation and unfairness. She was selfish, willful, vicious, and destructive, yet she received the whole family's preference and indulgence. There had never been fairness in this family, never a place for me to belong. I wiped the tears from my cheeks slowly, my voice terrifyingly calm, devoid of sobs or quarreling, only icy desolation. "I understand now. No matter what I do, it is always my fault. No matter what she does, it is always trivial. I am born to yield, sacrifice, and compromise, born to be exploited, let down and trampled on." My mother waved her hand irritably to chase me away. "Good that you know. Go to sleep and stop throwing tantrums. Don't be so selfish. Think more of your family." The three of them turned and walked out of my bedroom. The moment the door closed, I clearly heard Chloe's triumphant, coquettish voice. "Mom, Dad, I knew you loved me the most. I just didn't want her to be better than me, didn't want her to succeed." And my parents responded with gentle comfort and unrestrained indulgence, not a single word of blame or discipline. The door clicked shut completely, cutting off the light and noise outside. In the cramped bedroom, only the pungent smell of bleach lingered, along with my tattered, ruined suit, and the shattered, hopeless despair flooding my heart with nowhere to go. I did not sleep a wink that night, lying awake until the first break of dawn. Staring at the heavy shadows clinging to the ceiling, I replayed every cruel scene from the night before in endless loops. Chloe's blatant malice and unbridled destruction, my parents' blind favoritism and icy, cutting rebukes. Every harsh word and unfair treatment pierced my heart like countless fine needles, leaving me gasping in agony. I rose from bed countless times, walking over to stare at my completely ruined suit. The navy fabric had faded in large swathes, covered in irregular, glaring pale stains across its entire surface, ugly and tattered. Corroded by bleach, the material turned stiff and coarse, reeking of lingering chemical fumes. No amount of wiping, ventilating, or ironing could restore it in the slightest. All my attempts to remedy the damage were utterly futile. Daylight seeped gradually through the curtain gaps, falling upon the wrecked suit and making every hideous blemish even more distinct, a silent testament to my shattered hopes from the night before. By 7 a.m, with the interview fast approaching, I was trapped in complete desperation. There were no spare formal clothes in the house for me to change into. I had no savings left to buy a new suit last minute. Stanford was an hour's drive away, leaving me no time to rush for replacements. I had no choice but to head to this life-defining interview wearing my stained, tattered, flawed suit. Stepping out of my bedroom, I was greeted by a peaceful, undisturbed living room, starkly mismatched with the wreckage in my heart. My parents sat leisurely at the dining table, enjoying breakfast and casual chatter, as if the night's injustice and shattered hopes had never happened at all. Chloe wore a brand-new designer hoodie, her makeup flawless and hair neatly styled. She scrolled through her phone lazily while eating, glancing occasionally toward my bedroom with undisguised triumph and mockery, thoroughly enjoying the spectacle of my impending failure. She knew perfectly Well, she had destroyed my only formal outfit and crushed 8 years of my anticipation. She was certain that my shabby attire would make me a laughingstock at the elite interview, cost me my spot, and doom me to defeat. She eagerly awaited my downfall, longing for me to stay trapped in this family, forever crushed and exploited by them. My parents paid me no mind whatsoever. No one asked how I felt. No one cared about my interview. No one showed the slightest guilt over last night's cruelty, nor offered a single word of comfort. In their eyes, my future was trivial, far less important than their younger daughter's fleeting happiness. My failure would only be blamed on my incompetence, never on their biased indulgence or Chloe's vicious wrongdoing. I quietly gathered my interview materials without a single word. My heart had turned completely cold. All arguments, grievances, and explanations were meaningless now, nothing but futile humiliation. Still moping with that sour face, my mother glanced at me, her tone sharp with impatience. It was just a dress. Don't be so overly sensitive. Go to your interview properly and stop being so dramatic. My father set down his coffee cup, his voice flat, cold, and faintly contemptuous. Calm your mind. It's no big deal even if you don't get in. It was always just a trial. Don't overestimate yourself. They would never understand that the so-called casual trial was the only opportunity one had sacrificed 8 years of my youth and exhausted every ounce of my strength to seize. My only lifeline to escape my suffering and rewrite my fate. I did not reply, nor did I bother to defend myself. Every extra word was nothing but self-depletion. I walked back into my bedroom and slipped on my stained, faded, tattered suit. The tailored cut still fit my frame, yet the uneven pale streaks covering the once premium formal wear rendered it shabby, cheap, and utterly disheveled. Paired with my plain white shirt, the ruined suit looked wildly out of place and absurd, completely devoid of formality and decency. I stood before the mirror, taking in my reflection, neatly combed hair, clean subtle makeup, and a straight, restrained posture. Yet my ragged attire stripped me of every shred of confidence and composure. My mind raced with visions of the interview hall. Every other candidate immaculately suited, polished and radiant, brimming with poise and confidence. I alone would stand tattered and disheveled, like a stray intruder stumbling into a grand elite gathering, cramped and inferior. Overwhelming inferiority and anxiety washed over me, my fingertips trembling uncontrollably. I feared no rigorous professional questions, no fierce competition, no strict judge evaluations. What I feared most was the interviewers judging my attitude as careless and uncommitted at first glance, dismissing all my hard work and eliminating me outright solely because of my appearance. 8 years of diligent study, relentless perseverance, and silent suffering, all on the verge of crumbling because of a single suit, because of my own family's malice and bias. The injustice and despair threatened to break every last bit of my resolve. Chloe leaned against my doorway with her arms crossed, staring me up and down with blatant ridicule, her tone dripping with sharp sarcasm. Going to a Stanford interview, looking like that? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by everyone? People will think your family is too poor to afford a proper suit. What a disgrace. I lifted my gaze to meet hers, my eyes empty and calm, devoid of anger or argument, only pure indifference. You're the one who ruined my suit. Chloe shrugged nonchalantly, her grin growing bolder and more triumphant. So what? Mom and Dad aren't mad at me. What can you do? It's better if you fail the interview. Then you can stay home and keep waiting on me, keep supporting me. I took a deep breath, suppressing the surging emotions in my chest and ignoring her provocation. Arguing with a spoiled and scrupulous, unprincipled child was utterly pointless. I grabbed my document folder and walked out the door. My mother's cold instruction trailed after me, void of encouragement or comfort, only entitled, unreasonable demand. Come home early after your interview. Chloe is having friends over for dinner tonight. You need to drive them, clean the house, cook, and entertain the guests. In their eyes, my life-altering milestone would always rank below my sister's casual social gathering. My future, my dreams, my life could always be sacrificed and compromised for Chloe's trivial affairs. I did not look back or reply. I walked straight out of the cold villa, closing the gate and temporarily shutting out all oppression and hurt. Driving toward Stanford Medical School, the morning sunlight streamed through the windows, accentuating every hideous stain on my suit. With one hand on the steering wheel, I brushed my fingers gently over the faded patches, my eyes burning repeatedly with tears that I forced back down each time. I kept reassuring myself, clothes are only an outer shell, and true strength lies in ability. As long as my expertise is solid, my response is poised, and my competence outstanding, the judges would see my efforts, recognize my dedication, and never dismiss all my hard work based merely on appearance. Yet no matter how rational I tried to be, I could not fully dispel my inferiority and unease. I knew all too well how often people judged others by their looks. At the final interview of a top-tier university, decent attire was not merely etiquette, it was a symbol of sincerity and commitment. In my ragged, disheveled state, I would undoubtedly seem negligent and unserious to others. No one would believe I was a dreamer who had persisted for 8 years and given everything for my future. I drove onto the Stanford campus, lined with lush green trees and permeated by a solemn, scholarly atmosphere. Everywhere walked vibrant, confident students with polished appearances and poised demeanors. Against such a backdrop, my worn suit stood out jarringly, wrapping me in an inescapable sense of alienation and embarrassment. After parking the car, I sat quietly for 5 minutes, taking deep breaths to steady my mindset. Even facing certain doom, even utterly alone and covered in disgrace, I had to see this interview through. I could not surrender, could not waste 8 years of perseverance, could not let my family's malice destroy my entire life. I pushed open the car door, straightened my back, lifted my head, and stepped toward the solemn medical school interview building, braving despair with nothing but unyielding courage. Inside the interview lobby, every waiting candidate stood tall and immaculate in tailored formal wear, their faces glowing with quiet confidence. They chatted softly about research projects, internship experiences, and academic achievements, outstanding students fully nurtured and supported by their families, steady and elegant in every word and gesture. I alone stood among them in my stained, tattered suit, cramped and embarrassed, a lonely outcast intruding on a grand feast, small and helpless. Curious, surprised, and judgmental glances drifted toward me one after another, each gaze pricking at my skin like fine needles. I subconsciously tucked my arms inward, trying to cover the ugly stains on my clothes and hide my humiliation and inferiority. Inferiority flooded my heart like a tidal wave. I clutched my document folder tightly until my fingertips turned pale, my heart pounding wildly. At that moment, I sank into complete despair, certain that this day would mark the most humiliating and thorough failure of my life. Yet I never could have imagined that this tattered, ridiculed suit would soon become the most precious medal of my life, the very catalyst for my ultimate comeback and long-awaited redemption. Every second spent waiting for the interview was excruciating and suffocating. I kept my head lowered, repeatedly reviewing professional knowledge and reciting interview responses, forcing myself to tune out surrounding stares and gaps in status, and focusing all my attention entirely on the upcoming assessment. The young candidates beside me chatted and laughed with effortless poise, discussing prestigious research projects, top-tier internships, and future career plans with unshakable confidence and clarity. Their brilliance and composure only magnified my embarrassment and inferiority, making me too ashamed to lift my head. After an indefinite stretch of time, the lobby broadcast sounded on schedule. "Evelyn Carter, please proceed to interview room 3 for your final assessment." I took a deep breath, suppressing all my anxiety, insecurity, and unease. Straightening my posture and steadying my nerves, I reached out and pushed open the interview room door. The interview chamber was spacious, bright, and solemnly quiet, permeated with a dignified atmosphere. 3 judging seats were arranged at the front, occupied by 3 senior medical interviewers. Seated in the center was the venerable dean of Stanford School of Medicine, Professor Arthur Avu. Over 70 years old, Professor Avu possessed graying hair, an elegant demeanor, and calm, profound eyes. With decades of experience in medical practice and education, he had evaluated countless individuals, upheld unwavering impartiality, and maintained extraordinary vision. He was a highly respected authority figure across the entire North American medical field. He rarely attended routine undergraduate interviews, presiding personally only over the final round of annual admissions to screen the most qualified candidates. To be interviewed by him was both a rare honor and the strictest trial for every applicant. I stepped forward slowly, bowed politely, and greeted the judges in a steady, restrained tone, striving to present my most professional state. Yet the moment I stood upright, the three interviewers' gazes fell uniformly upon me. Instead of examining my resume or observing my demeanor, their eyes locked rigidly on my stained, tattered suit, filled with astonishment, confusion, and disbelief. At this rigorous, prestigious final interview, the highest standard of medical admissions in the nation, every other candidate appeared neat, formal, and reverent in proper attire. I alone stood out jarringly, disheveled, flawed, and utterly undignified. The two senior judges on either side frowned faintly, subtle negative impressions settling in their eyes. They undoubtedly assumed I held a careless attitude, disrespected this critical interview, and lacked basic etiquette and reverence. My heart sank to the very bottom. The worst-case scenario I had feared had finally come true. My first impression was irreparably ruined, and all the advantages I had painstakingly accumulated over the years seemed poised to vanish entirely because of my damaged clothing. My palms tightened, my fingertips turning icy cold, filled with helpless bitterness. I longed to explain, to pour out all my grievances and helplessness, yet every excuse felt feeble and futile in that moment. No one would believe that a candidate who had devoted 8 years of relentless preparation had her only formal suit maliciously ruined by her own family on the eve of her life-changing interview. I could only suppress my surging emotions, ready to begin my self-introduction and compensate for my flawed appearance with solid professional competence to salvage the situation. But the instant I was about to speak, Professor Ah Fu in the center suddenly leaned forward slightly. His originally calm and steady gaze froze abruptly, fixated intently on the bleach stains across my suit, his expression turning grave and solemn. Still he did not glance at my resume, nor wait for my introduction. He simply stared fixedly at my damaged clothing, complex emotions swirling deep in his eyes, as if he could see through every mottled mark to uncover all my hidden hardships and unspoken grievances. The solemn interview room fell into complete silence, the atmosphere growing heavy and oppressive. The two side judges looked utterly confused, unable to understand why the invariably calm and composed dean would fixate so deeply on a damaged suit and react with such gravity. After several seconds, Professor Ah Fu, as gaze slowly lifted to study my facial features, his inner emotions growing increasingly intricate, a mix of shock, regret, compassion, and a sharp, icy clarity of truth unveiled. He spoke first, his voice low and resonant with a faint, tremulous undertone. "Your last name is Carter?" I blinked slightly before nodding calmly in reply. "Yes, Professor. I am Evelyn Carter." That single surname triggered a drastic shift in Professor Ah Fu's expression. He leaned back slowly in his chair, his eyes deep and resolute as he asked solemnly, "You are a descendant of Dr. Carter. Thomas Carter was your great-grandfather." The words struck me like a thunderclap, freezing me completely in place, overwhelmed with shock. Thomas Carter, my great-grandfather, had been a top-tier surgical authority a century ago and one of the founding elders of Stanford School of Medicine, a legendary figure revered throughout North America's medical community. The Carter family had once been an illustrious, respected medical lineage, generations of dedicated physicians upholding benevolent medical ethics, saving countless lives, and embodying unwavering integrity. Yet the family's glory had faded completely in my grandfather and father's generation. My father had no passion for medicine, abandoning the ancestral profession and discarding the family's noble ethos and kindness. Selfish, narrow-minded, and emotionally cold, he favored one child relentlessly. The once glorious century-old medical family gradually faded from the medical field, falling into obscurity. I had long known my family's history. It was my ancestors' perseverance and benevolent medical spirit that inspired my lifelong reverence for medicine and solidified my original aspiration. I had never disclosed my family background to anyone, refusing to rely on my ancestors' prestige for any advantage. I had only ever wanted to succeed and reinvent myself through my own efforts. I had never imagined that the venerable Dean Ha-Fu would know my great-grandfather, and that merely from my surname and my tattered suit, he could see through my origins and my plight at a single glance. Suppressing the shock surging through my heart, I nodded firmly. Yes, Thomas Carter was my great-grandfather. Upon receiving my confirmation, Professor Ha-Fu's eyes darkened completely, filled with profound sorrow and restrained anger, his tone growing increasingly solemn and heavy. I see. Now I understand. He let out a soft sigh, his gaze returning to my stained suit, every word weighty and profound. I finally realize your tattered attire is not a sign of disrespect or ignorance of etiquette. It was deliberately damaged out of malice, targeted specifically at you. The grievances and forbearance I had suppressed all night crumbled completely at his words. My eyes reddened instantly, warm tears welling up in my sockets, and all my hardened facade shattered into pieces. The Carter family has practiced medicine for generations, upheld upright morals, persevered in kindness, and embodied benevolent medical ethics. Every generation has been principled, diligent, and righteous. Professor Ha-Fu looked at me with profound sorrow and regret, his tone full of emotion. In my youth, I was fortunate to receive careful guidance from your great-grandfather. He is a senior I have always deeply respected and cherished in this field. I can hardly fathom that a descendant of the noble Carter family, gifted, resilient, diligent, and disciplined, who should have been nurtured carefully, treated with kindness, and standing here confidently in proper formal wear to pursue her dreams, is instead forced to appear at this life-defining interview covered in ruin and trepidation, bearing all hardships alone. His tone sharpened abruptly, repressed anger spilling forth. No outsider would commit such petty, vicious, and selfish deeds. Only your closest family could do this. Only a persistently biased, exploitative, and cold-blooded family could push such a talented, resilient, and kind child to such desperate straits. With only a few sentences, without needing detailed explanation from me, he pinpointed every grievance, every silent sacrifice, and every humiliation I had endured for 22 years, laying bare all the darkness and unfairness of my broken family. The two side judges were utterly stunned, staring at me in shock. Their initial doubts and negative impressions faded completely, replaced by profound sympathy, regret, and admiration. They finally understood the resilient spirit hidden beneath my disheveled appearance, and the immense hardships I had endured on my journey. Professor Ha-Fu fixed his sharp, clear gaze firmly on me, his tone steady and solemn. Child, do not hide, do not feel inferior, and do not endure silently any longer. Tell me the truth. Has your family long been biased and exploitative? Have they indulged your siblings' selfish willfulness, destroyed your future, trampled your hopes, and forced you into endless compromise and unconditional surrender? The grievances and resentment accumulated over 22 years burst forth completely. I no longer endured in silence, no longer pretended to be strong, no longer bore everything alone. Lifting my tearful eyes and straightening my firm posture, I spoke every truth clearly and unflinchingly. Chapter 5 dignified ultimate counterattack, severing the shackles of family bonds. I did not break down in hysterical tears or complain resentfully. Instead, I recounted my 22 years of growth, along with all the farce and harm from the previous night, in a calm, objective, and thorough manner. I laid out the persistent favoritism and unequal treatment that had run through my entire childhood and youth. Endless compromise, endurance, and sacrifice had always fallen to me, while all preference and privilege belonged solely to my sister. 4 years, I had remained sensible, disciplined, and devoted, yet never received a single word of recognition or gratitude. Meanwhile, Chloe, spoiled, selfish, and reckless in her misdeeds, was always tolerated, indulged, and shielded unconditionally by our family. I spoke honestly of how hard I had fought to own my only formal suit. It had been earned through 6 months of part-time work during every spare hour, through extreme frugality, and by giving up all personal leisure. It had stood as my sole decent attire, the foundation of my confidence, and the embodiment of 8 years of medical dedication and hope for this final interview. I laid bare the full truth of the previous night. Out of extreme jealousy and selfishness, Chloe had deliberately ruined my suit with bleach, intending to destroy my future and crush my dreams entirely. Yet my parents, blind to right and wrong, twisted the truth completely. Instead of upholding justice or punishing her vicious conduct, they chose to indulge her willfully, accusing me of overreacting and throwing unreasonable tantrums. They forced me to swallow my grievances and bow in apology, allowing my hopes to be trampled without mercy. I had no way to remedy the damage, no time to buy new clothes, and no extra resources to fix what was lost. My voice was steady and clear, my gaze firm and sincere. I had no choice but to attend this interview in my tattered attire. I was inferior, anxious, and afraid, terrified that my disheveled appearance would negate all my efforts, that 8 years of perseverance would be wasted. Yet I never considered giving up. This was my only chance to break free from fate and save myself, and I had to grasp it tightly. I never craved my parents' favor, nor envied my sister's privileges. I only wished for my efforts to be seen, my grievances to be acknowledged, my dedication to be spared from wanton trampling, and my dreams to be treated with kindness. Nothing more, nothing less. As my sincere confession came to an end, the entire interview room fell into absolute silence, filled only with wordless emotion and regret. The 3 judges regarded me with profound compassion, admiration, and sorrow. They finally understood me completely. Beneath my disheveled exterior lay an extraordinarily resilient, clear-minded, and kind soul. Trapped in the mire of extreme unfairness, I had never degenerated, never complained, never surrendered. Against all odds, I had grown stronger alone, always reaching toward the light. After hearing my full account, Dean Harvard's eyes filled with intensified sorrow and suppressed anger, his tone solemn and powerful with every weighted word. In over 70 years of teaching, having witnessed countless families and students, I have seen biased parents and selfish children, yet never a family so cold, so unjust, so utterly inverted in its values. The Carter family has produced virtuous physicians for generations, upheld above all integrity, kindness, justice, gratitude, and perseverance. Your talent, mentality, perseverance, and vision perfectly inherit the most precious character and spirit of your ancestors' medical lineage. Yet your parents have abandoned the century-old ethics and bottom line of this family. Selfish and narrow-minded, they spoil the younger child while exploiting the elder. They take your sensibility and dedication for granted, indulge evil conduct, extinguish hope, and trample on sincerity. His gaze sharpened like a torch, laying bare all the hypocrisy and darkness of my family for everyone present. They are not ignorant or confused of right and wrong. They are simply biased and selfish by nature. They habitually exploit the sensible child and indulge the selfish one. They revel in the glory and stability brought by your excellence and devotion, yet refuse to grant you the slightest warmth, respect, or preference. Day after day, they drain you, suppress you, and dim your light, determined to trap you in place forever, a mere stepping stone for their younger daughter, a tool serving the family. Every single sentence pierced through the false facade of familial harmony, tore apart my parents' years of hypocrisy, and gave voice to the 22 years of unspoken grievances I had endured. The hardships no one had understood, the regrets no one had acknowledged, the injustices no one had dared to face were finally validated and seen openly by this respected dean. The depression and pain bottled up inside me for over 2 decades vanished in an instant, replaced by unprecedented ease, relief, and liberation. I no longer needed to doubt myself, to endure silently, or to swallow all my grievances alone. None of my persistence had been wrong. All my resentment was justified. The fault never lay with the diligent, sensible me, but with my biased, selfish, cold-blooded family. Dean Harvard looked at me gently, his gaze firm yet warm, his tone utterly solemn. "Child, you have done nothing wrong. Growing up in an environment of neglect, exploitation, and injustice, you have still preserved your integrity, pursued diligence, remained kind and clear-headed, and lived with dignity. This mentality, perseverance, and breadth of vision surpass most of your peers and represent the most precious talent a physician can possess. Your family's failure to cherish, recognize, and treat you well is their lifelong loss, never your regret." He paused briefly, his expression grave and solemn as he formally vindicated all my past suffering and injustice before everyone present. "Today, In the name of the Dean of Stanford School of Medicine, I pronounce you innocent. You never overreacted, nor threw unreasonable tantrums. All your anger, resentment, grief, and perseverance are fully justified. The fault lies with your biased, indulgent parents, your vicious and selfish sister, and your distorted, unjust family, never with you. The moment his words fell, warmth welled up in my eyes. Years of obsessive longing faded completely, and all the haze in my heart dissipated. I straightened my back fully, casting off all inferiority and timidity, completing my ultimate counterattack with clarity, poise, and resolve. I no longer humbly begged for my family's approval, clung to unattainable familial affection, or exhausted my life accommodating others' selfishness. I lifted my gaze and spoke clearly and resolutely, every syllable firm and unshakable. Thank you for your justice and recognition. For years, I was forced to be sensible, to yield, and to sacrifice. I once believed that if I were excellent enough, tolerant enough, and giving enough, I could earn a little kindness and fairness. Today, I finally understand that biased hearts can never be warmed, and selfish family members will never know how to cherish. From the night they twisted the truth, indulged evil, and forced me into silent submission, I abandoned all expectations of this family. I no longer need their approval, crave their favor, or pay the price for their selfishness and mistakes. I stand here today not to beg for admission, but to prove myself. All my hard work, persistence, and progress are for my own sake, to break free from shackles, seize control of my fate, and stride toward my brilliant future. From this moment onward, I draw a clear line with my birth family. No more endurance, no more compromise, no more sacrificing myself for others. For the rest of my life, I will live solely for myself. This resolute, sober, and dignified counterattack contained no shouting, no hatred, no accusation, yet carried far greater power and pathos than any quarrel. The three judges nodded in unanimous approval, their eyes filled with sincere admiration. Dean Harvard watched me with profound relief and emotion, as if beholding a resilient pine tree growing tenaciously from rocky crevices, reaching upward against the wind, true to its original heart. Excellent! His voice was solemn and powerful. For physicians, character, vision, perseverance, and kindness are paramount. Medical skills can be refined and improved over time, but innate clarity of mind, kindness, resilience, and sobriety are priceless, irreplaceable gifts. To remain principled, diligent, and disciplined amid extreme injustice, without complaining or succumbing to despair, this character qualifies you to become an exceptional physician. With no hesitation, he made an official announcement before everyone present, his tone decisive and authoritative. As Dean of Stanford School of Medicine, I officially grant Evelyn Carter full admission with a 4-year full scholarship. Final approval is effective immediately, with no secondary review or supplementary assessment required. The moment Dean Harvard delivered his official admission verdict, warm applause erupted throughout the interview room. All the hardship of 8 years of silent perseverance and self-reliant struggle culminated in perfect triumph. Standing there in my stained and damaged suit, I had secured a life-changing comeback. Those scars of suffering had finally turned into the most brilliant medals of my growth. After bidding everyone farewell, I drove home. The evening breeze brushed gently against my face, sweeping away 22 years of suppressed agony and leaving me in complete peace and clarity. I harbored no further expectations for this biased, cold family. I returned today only to end my past once and for all and sever every lingering tie. The villa remained noisy and bustling, filled with Chloe's friends chatting and laughing loudly. My parents fussed over my younger daughter, doting on her endlessly, completely oblivious to the fact that this day had determined the entire course of my life. Seeing me walk in still wearing my tattered suit, Chloe immediately curled her lips into a mocking smile and sneered loudly on purpose. I told you it was all wasted effort. Showing up to a top interview in ragged clothes, you must have been the laughingstock of the whole room. You came back defeated after all that fuss. The guests around us turned their heads, their eyes glinting with undisguised ridicule. My mother looked utterly annoyed and snapped impatiently. Hurry up and help entertain the guests instead of standing there being a nuisance. My father's tone was cold and dismissive. I told you not to be arrogant. Stanford was never within your reach. You ought to know your place and accept your fate. Their casual disdain and negation effortlessly erased 8 years of my relentless dedication. Maintaining a calm, expressionless composure, I chose not to argue. I slowly laid the official Stanford School of Medicine admission letter and full scholarship certificate flat on the entrance cabinet. The gilded school emblem stood solemn and striking, the official printed documents undeniable proof of my victory. The noisy living room fell dead silent in an instant. All laughter and mockery ceased abruptly, leaving the room so quiet one could hear a pin drop. The guests leaned forward to read the documents clearly, their faces flooding with shock. Their mocking gazes instantly shifted into profound admiration and awe. Chloe's smile froze completely, all color draining from her face, leaving it ghastly pale. She stared rigidly at the admission letter, her pupils trembling violently. All her pride and superiority crumbled in an instant, consumed by frantic, unaccepting jealousy. She screamed shrilly, "It's fake. This has to be fake. How could they admit you in those terrible clothes? You must have forged it." Her hysterical outburst stunned every guest present. My parents also panicked, rushing forward to stare closely at the documents, checking and rechecking every detail. Their expressions shifted from shock to stiff embarrassment, twisting into shades of pale and blue as shame washed over them. The belittling words they had spoken moments earlier echoed sharply in the air, slapping their own pride hard. They had indulged Chloe in destroying my suit and twisted the truth to shield her malice the night before. Now, I had staged a desperate comeback, shattering all their prejudice and contempt with my own strength. My mother instantly switched to a flattering tone, her voice flustered and soft, abandoning her previous harshness entirely. "Evelyn, Mom was wrong. I spoke too harshly earlier. I never knew how outstanding you are. You're our pride." My father also dropped his arrogance, forcing a gentle, guilty tone. "Good girl, we underestimated you. Hurry and keep these documents safe. We'll hold a celebration tonight." They were desperate to save face, trying to portray themselves as loving, devoted parents in front of the guests and gloss over their years of bias and cruelty. Beside them, Chloe completely broke down, bursting into tearful, hysterical cries. "I hate this. Why? I ruined her clothes. She has no right to be better than me. Mom, Dad, you love me the most." Her unhinged tantrum laid bare her vicious nature and twisted jealousy, thoroughly destroying her parents' false facade of dignity and leaving them utterly humiliated. The watching friends wore varied expressions, having seen through the family's distorted favoritism and indulgence, silently sighing at the injustice. I watched the flustered, hypocritical family of 3 with utterly calm, emotionless eyes. I spoke slowly, my tone indifferent yet resolute. There will be no celebration. My admission, my future, my life, every bit of it was earned by my own hands. It has nothing to do with this family. For 22 years, you have favored and indulged cruelty while draining and suppressing me. You never gave me a single shred of warmth or respect, so there is no need for fake affection now. I reached out to collect my documents, sweeping a cold glance over everyone present. The moment you indulged evil and twisted the truth that night, every familial bond between me and this family was completely severed. My parents' faces paled drastically. They hurried forward to stop me, voices frantic and anxious. "Evelyn, don't be impulsive. We're your family." Family! I let out a cold, hollow laugh. A true family would never destroy my future, never negate my efforts, never force me to walk through every dark day completely alone. I did not spare them another glance. I grabbed my luggage, straightened my back, and stepped firmly out of this cold, suffocating villa. Behind me came their frantic pleas and Chloe's broken cries, yet I never paused. From now on, my path stretched broad and bright, waiting for me at Stanford. As for this family filled with bias and hurt, there would be nothing but estrangement and regret from this day forward. They had personally pushed away their most sensible, resilient child while spoiling and fostering a selfish, vicious daughter. For the rest of their lives, regret and loneliness would be the bitter fruits they deserve to bear. After Dean Harvard's announcement, 2 seconds of solemn silence hung over the interview room before sincere, heartfelt applause burst forth. The warm round of claps, filled with recognition, admiration, and blessing, gently soothed all the cold grief I had carried for 22 years. I stood rooted to the spot, the tension that had gripped me for years finally melting away. Warmth welled in my eyes, and a relieved, bright smile finally tugged at my lips. 8 years of relentless study, endless nights of perseverance, silent suffering, and lonely self-healing had finally earned me this grand, fulfilling reward. Clad in my maliciously ruined suit, I had won the hardest, most crucial battle of my life. No family support, no ancestral prestige, no shortcuts. Only my own resilience, discipline, clarity, and strength had pulled me from the brink of despair and rewritten my fate. Professor Harvard looked at me gently and spoke earnestly. "Child, you deserve all the goodness and justice in this world. Walk forward without hesitation, without compromise, without endurance. Stanford will be your new, warm, and fair home from today onward." I bowed deeply, my voice sincere and resolute. "Thank you for your recognition and guidance. I will uphold the true heart of a physician, keep striving diligently, and live up to this hard-won new beginning." I walked slowly out of the interview room. Warm sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, bathing my entire body and dispelling the years of cold haze lingering in my heart. My stained, tattered suit no longer filled me with inferiority or embarrassment. Instead, it had become the supreme medal of my rebirth, my against-all-odds comeback, and my relentless growth toward the light. It had witnessed my deepest suffering, most painful grievances, and most desperate moments. More importantly, it had witnessed my resilience, courage, stubbornness, and renewal, my unyielding resolve to never bow to injustice or surrender to fate. On the drive home, my heart felt lighter and clearer than ever before. The familial shackles that had weighed on me for 22 years were finally broken. All suppression, resentment, grief, and obsession faded completely, leaving only open broadness and endless longing for the future.